So I want to talk about the evolution of social media from the 2010s to the 2020s and how Gary Vee ruined social media.
Do you guys ever feel like social media has changed? And not like just changed, it's dramatically changed. It's evolved since the 2010s to the 2020 era. I would argue even more so if you look at the 2000s era, which is like mid 2000s is right around when social media came out. You can compare it from that point all the way till now, and there's been drastic changes, and we're going to talk about those changes in today's video. We actually only have one video to react to today, but I think it's a fascinating one, and she does a lot of work here with a whiteboard, and I think it's really interesting, and I think you guys might think it's interesting as well. So with that being said, let's dive into it.
So I want to talk about the evolution of social media from the 2010s to the 2020s and how Gary Vee ruined social media. So what happened was in the 2010s, when you went online, you knew who you were looking at. Chances are you were following your friends. And this was the era where social media was promising that what it had to offer was this new and improved way to connect with your peer group.
Now, it's not even just like about following your friends. Even YouTube, it used to be the people you were subscribed to were the people that you would see the most in your feed. That doesn't happen anymore. That's why you have so many subscriptions, because you're constantly trying to keep track of the people that you actually want to follow and the content that you enjoy. But now it's basically what YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy. And when I say this, I'm hoping that this video actually does get presented to you in some form. Maybe you see it on the TV or on your phone or something like that. And if so, thanks for clicking on the video. But I do agree, social media has definitely changed a lot in that regard for sure.
So if you went to college, you would sign up for Facebook and you would be able to build relationships and deeper connections with the people you already knew or knew of through the feed. Then what started to happen were creators were making content, and creators and influencers were people you didn't know, but who were making media that was relevant or valuable to you. And at that time, there weren't many creators and influencers compared to what we have today. So what the idea was that you would post consistently and people would find you as a personality and they would follow you and they would learn about your story and your context and your lore. One thing that's very important about building relationships is context. So without context, we don't really have a way of understanding who we are. So what ended up happening in the 2020s and what the big difference is there started to be more of an adoption to social media. So in the 2010s, it was still mostly for millennials, and that was pretty much it. It was mostly for millennials, right?
Yeah, this was the era where millennials basically owned social media. Like, they were the vast majority of people on social media, and a lot of it was to connect with people that they were interacting with in college.
But what ended up happening is the younger generation, Gen Z, started adopting social media, and the older generation started adopting it. And so by default, there just started to be more media production. At the same time, we were receiving messages about how impactful social media was for marketing, and how if you wanted to make it in your business or just in life, you should get on social media. It went from being some kind of like niche hobby to more like a standard, an industry standard and expectation. So then you start seeing people create LinkedIn social media personalities and YouTube like just now you start to see this real industry of creators. Now, the way that the social media platforms decided to deal with this influx of media was they were privy to the fact that they could make a lot of money without focusing on the friends aspect anymore. They were like, people aren't really even using social media to keep up with their friends. They're using social media for entertainment and media. They're using it to keep up with their favorite celebrities or watch something entertaining.
And this, to me, was like the death of Facebook when this happened, because Facebook was like the original social media platform, right? And it was mostly to keep up to date and, keep in touch with your friends and family. And then once they changed this, I feel like it changed the whole future of Facebook and just social media in general.
And during this time, Hollywood gets hit really bad. Music gets hit really bad. All of our big entertainment industries get hit really bad, and everything starts to dissolve into social media use, right? And pixels and followers and blah, blah, blah. So now enter the 2020s. You go online and you don't know who you're looking at. Now the feed has been designed where I don't know what I'm looking at, but I do see funny memes, or I see, things that the algorithm thinks are relevant, or things that I'm going to find entertaining, without needing to know who the people are. And then on top of that, instead of falling for a specific creator or a specific influencer, there's no real expectation that I need to follow the people I'm getting entertained by. Right? Now we're saying how much follower count doesn't matter anymore. Well, it doesn't matter anymore because they built a different infrastructure of the internet. So you can go viral and not have any way to communicate with the people you just went viral for. Fame is cheap, essentially. That's what they redesigned the internet to be. And the reason why I blame Gary Vee is because I find that his rhetoric and what he was really pushing in the 2010s, and kind of he was the leader in telling us what social media was for, he really inspired this echo chamber and this network effect that forced social media to redistribute and rethink about how to distribute all the media. And basically in 2020, these companies got really good at plugging up all these rabbit holes that creators and influencers used to use to pull their audiences out of social media and into their own domains, into their websites, into their music, into their films, into their podcasts, where now all that's plugged up. So instead of you leaving the platform, back in 2010s, social media was designed for you to leave the platform. Now everything's designed for you to stay on. And they're doing their best to try to get you to make money on their platform. But they really want to have a closed end system where there's no reason to leave. And honestly, there's no reason to even have context of who you are. So this is who you are, and this is who you are with context. Imagine your favorite artist, right? If you didn't have the context of your favorite artist and you didn't know some of the inspiration behind their songs, or how they grew up, or where they grew up, or why they believe what they believe, then it really takes away a lot of the closeness and intimacy that you feel with that artist, right? Maybe you just like that artist one song and you relate to them because you like that one 30-second clip that they have. But artists don't like being related to this way. The whole point of what attracts them to being artists is being able to share their contextual value and their story and what they have to say. But the way the internet is currently built says, no, we don't want your story. And honestly, if you try to tell your story, you're not going to be heard because there's too much to flip through, that people don't even have the retention to listen to your story. Even if they wanted to, they might save your stuff and tell themselves that they're gonna, visit it later, but they don't actually do that because our brains are being exploited to flip through media over and over and over again. So you're in a trap, right? You've been trafficked, and I've been saying this for years, and I'm going to continue to explain the different ways that you've been trafficked and how we are continually being trafficked through different social media features that create different social behaviors that are creating a culture that is decaying. So cultures are like little petri dishes of activity, right? So, remember in elementary school or middle school, you had a petri dish and you could create an ecosystem in your petri dish, and you see, oh, this relates to this and this feeds off of that, and these two things interact. That's what a culture is. It's a cluster of activity and the way of how organisms relate to each other. Now, if you put things in the petri dish like social media or story replies or AI, everything, all the activity in the petri dish starts to move differently and do different things. But if the people inside are not aware of how much these things are changing their culture and their environment, they just kind of keep trying to do what used to work. And they're like, wait, why isn't this working anymore? Wait, why isn't this working anymore? Wait. And it's like, you'll get old advice and people will be like, oh, like you need to do this old advice. And you'll try to do the old advice, but the old advice doesn't work in the new world. And old is relative in our particular petri dish because something that is as old as 5 years old is really old. Where in traditional cultures, 5 years is not a long time at all. Cultures, typically human cultures, stay pretty much the same technologically for decades, if not hundreds, if not thousands of years. The issue with our culture is we renew it and we transform it because we have a bias about technology, and we keep inserting foreign technology into our culture, and it keeps disrupting our ability to relate.
Now, let me know what you think of that video. I found it fascinating. I like that she does a lot of research, and she kind of puts it a little bit on Gary Vee because he really did monetize social media, or at least help monetize it to a certain extent. And now everything, it feels like an ad, let's be honest. And I don't know if it's going to keep going down this road. Maybe in the future it'll actually backpedal, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I want your guys' opinion though on this video as well down below in the comment section. Social media, what the hell happened over the last 10 to 15 years? Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.